Hey, welcome back to the pod. Today, Shelby and I are going to be sharing some super exciting AI and cybersecurity news to you, so stay tuned. All right, Shelby, what do you got for us today?
Okay, first I want to start talking about Xloader. So that might send shivers down some people's spines if they've had experience with it because it's notorious for being really hard to analyze, which makes it hard to defend against, right? So let's talk about its history. First, we started seeing it around 2020. It was a rebrand of malware called Formbook, and what does this malware do? It steals information, basically. It's very sneaky, and I want to kind of talk about why. It's basically the answer is E, all of the above. It's got everything that makes a piece of software hard to analyze. So first thing is there's ongoing development for this. It's kind of like a malware family at this point, I guess. But it's constantly changing its internal like mechanisms and like beyond recognition, right? Because that's their objective, obviously, to hide better. Even like the API calls are obfuscated. There's aggressive evasion going on, so your sandboxes aren't really going to save you in this case for the analysts because a lot of times if it detects that it's in like a sandbox or a VM, it's just going to sit quietly. It's not going to run. It's also challenging because the memory dumps are useless. What you end up getting, you want to try to time it so that the piece that you're observing, as it makes a specific API call, you want to grab a memory dump at that time so you get the information you're looking for. However, what you get is this mix of mostly encrypted data and just a little bit unencrypted, and it's very difficult to make any sort of sense out of it. So analyzing is very tricky as far as like a live analysis. The reason you're getting that encrypted data is because it does something I'm calling like just-in-time decryption, where all of the data in memory and the critical functions, they are staying encrypted all the way up until they're being used. So they're loaded and they're just staying decrypted until they're being used. They get decrypted, used, and then re-encrypted, which makes those memory dumps useless, right? So it's getting tricky. It also is hiding its C2. It's camouflaging by its command and control domains by basically blending in with a ton of noise. So it's really hard to do any sort of proper network like analysis of it either because it's going to be jumbled, it's incomplete, and it's just kind of hiding, right? So all that to say, the only good way to evaluate it, Xloader, is going to be through static analysis. However, static analysis is painfully slow, right? And when we combine that with the fact that Xloader is constantly changing, we've got a losing situation here, right, for the defenders. Because by the time you get any sort of meaningful IOCs, it's already outdated, right? Maybe twice over. So because basically you have to take all these steps, right? You have to unpack the entire thing. Then you have to figure it out function by function. You have to decrypt it as well, and then parse through it until you can find meaningful IOCs. So that's where IDA comes in. For anyone who doesn't know, IDA it stands for Interactive Disassembler. So basically you're disassembling like the machine run code down to C assembly language, which is not what most programmers like to see. Assembly language is it's pretty low level, right? It's not for a good fun reading, but it is basically the only way that you can reverse engineer it. So we're trying to speed things up by using AI. And this is not actually the new part of it. So researchers at Cisco Talos? Talos. Do you know which one it is?
I think it's Talos, but
Okay.
I don't know.
Let's go with that. Researchers at Cisco Talos use an IDA integration with an LLM, right? So that's cool. They're speeding things up. They're doing this integration, but this is the new part of it. Is it's very resource intensive. In order to get IDA to integrate with your LLM, so you've got your LLM here. You're gonna need an MCP server, right, to handle that. But you can't just use one MCP server in this case because they're single use, right? They're specific. And so you have IDA, and then you need a plugin which talks with your IDA MCP server. And then you need to do the same thing for, let's say we're using VMware in this case to run your malware or your workstation or whatever it is. So you've got your VMware workstation, which needs to talk to your VMware IDA server. So you're seeing it's starting to get kind of resource intensive, a little heavy. And then within that, so that's from the VMware server. Within your VM itself, then you're running you have another plugin so that it can talk to its x64 debug MCP server. So it works, but it's not beginner friendly and it is not lightweight because you have to have this heavy local tooling. However, it's great because then what can your LLM do with this sort of setup? Basically, it can pull live data on demand. It can perform experiment and observe cycles, right? Do this, see what happens. Do that, see what happens. Test out the result. It can also assist with unpacking in real time. So it's powerful. It's really cool. So the new part of this whole discussion is that Checkpoint Research found that they could use ChatGPT for malware analysis without setting up their entire integration, right? Or a collection of integrations. So they're able to use ChatGPT directly with the web interface for analyzing Xloader. And they use this for Xloader 8.0. And they were actually able to extract IOCs. And those, because we earlier mentioned that the command and control is hidden, if you can figure out which domains are the real ones instead of the decoy ones, it's going to make your network analysis and other analysis a lot easier, as well as detection. So they got domains and URLs out of this. And the way that they did it was they basically had to export the IDA data, but then ChatGPT Cloud could analyze it from there, which was really cool because it just saves a lot of time, it would seem. And that way, hopefully, the good guys can keep up with everything going on with Xloader. So that's my story. What do you think?
Well, a couple thoughts. First off, I'm so glad that LLMs can read assembly versus like me having to sit there and read that all the day long. But I know there's people out there that love reading assembly all day long and reverse engineering in IDA.
Ooh, bless them.
That's definitely like a, acquired taste, right? So, and I think the good part is there's just like a lot of training data on like normal PC architectures like the x86, x64 architectures. So I feel like LLMs would probably do a pretty good job on those architectures of like understanding what the assembly code is doing. And then, you combine that with like OpenAI's got the Codex model now that's like specifically good at coding tasks. So I feel like that'd be powerful. That'd be interesting to try out. I'd definitely like to try that out for myself. One thing that I do want to say is, even if you're not doing malware reverse engineering, let's just say you're doing like normal web app development, the scenario that you're describing where you have to run multiple MCP servers, in my opinion, is a very common scenario. Like typically when I look at a person who's like kind of a power user of Cursor, I mean, they have at least 5 MCP servers that they're connecting to, and that's just for like web app development. And most of those MCP servers are running on their local laptop or their local system. So the thing that is kind of frustrating is with a lot of the MCP servers, it's like, clone this repo and then like, compile it yourself and get it running on your system. And while I don't so much mind going through those processes to get the MCP server running, what I don't love is like when I have to install dependencies, because then multiple different applications could require different dependencies, and then you end up in dependency hell, right, where you're constantly like flip-flopping back and forth. So one thing that I found that's really a time saver for me personally is that if you download and install Docker Desktop, in the latest version of Docker Desktop, they actually have like an MCP store, and you can go to this like kind of like an app store on your iPhone, but for MCP servers. And so you go to the MCP store, and they just have a bunch of pre-built Docker containers, and each Docker container is its own MCP server. And so that way, if you need like 5 MCP servers running your laptop, instead of like installing all these things on your laptop, you just run 5 containers, and then when you're done using those, you just kill the containers. And
Oh,
this
that's
is
brilliant.
and it's actually seamless if you set it up properly, where you can actually have one MCP connection from Cursor to the Docker client, and then Docker will figure out, like, become almost like an MCP proxy, and it will figure out, oh, you actually are asking for this function, which is inside this other MCP server. Let me spin up that container on the fly and route your request there. And so you know, even like, let's say you like install 50 MCP apps, that doesn't mean 50 containers will be running on your laptop. It's not until Cursor actually goes to call the specific action, and then the Docker kind of proxy says like, oh yeah, you want to take a screenshot of the browser? Okay, I'm going to start up, this Playwright Docker container, and it's going to go do that function for you. And so it's even better than I initially thought. Initially, I just was like, oh, this is going to take care of dependency hell. But the reality is, it's like, it just saves a ton of time, man. So
That's really cool. Does it spin down also? If it spins up for requests, if it's sitting dormant a long time, will it also know to, or do you have to do a little cleanup at the end? Spinning
That's
down.
a great question. I have no idea. Usually, my development systems get messy enough that I'm rebooting them like once every day. But I know other people aren't like really operating that way. I mean, you could definitely go in and stop the containers. Like, I've done that before. But yeah, I don't know. That's interesting. I don't know if there's a cleanup function or not, but they're definitely still like developing it. And the other thing is, there's not like all the MCP servers in the world that you'd want in the store yet. So, but there is a process where you can actually build a container and submit it to be added to the store. So there's more and more coming every day. I don't know. Yeah, it's a good question,
That's a slick
Shelby.
solution, though. I like that a lot. That sounds great. Fixing that pain point.
Yeah.
Thanks for
Yeah.
telling me about that.
Yeah. Anyways, just pro tip from the last, year of me being frustrated with MCP servers. So,
Cool. Well,
talking about being frustrated, Michael Burry, he's the investor from The Big Short. If any of you have seen that movie, this is the actual person that's based on. So he's predicted a lot of the market crashes before, like specifically, I believe he was like predicting the housing crash that occurred in, what was that, 2008? Man, 2008, that was almost 20 years ago now. Can you believe that? Oh, I'm so old.
Don't mention that. Wow. Really?
Okay, coming back around. So he's done an analysis of the stocks of the major tech companies, and he's determined that their profits could be overstated by as much as 20 to 30%. And so and this is not even talking about, it's related to the AI bubble, but it's not talking about even like an over-evaluation due to the bubble. So the reason that he's saying it's over-evaluated is because essentially you have all these tech companies that are buying chips from NVIDIA, right? So we've seen OpenAI has publicly committed to buy $100 billion in chips, right? So $100 billion in chips, from NVIDIA. So, I mean, that's a huge purchase, right? And so what a lot of these tech companies are doing is they are depreciating that asset over a timeline that is allowable for tax purposes. So they're basically depreciating the asset over typically 6 years. So they're saying, hey, we're going to use these chips evenly over the next 6 years, and at the end of the 6-year period, we're not going to use the chips anymore, and we're going to throw them away. That's essentially what, you don't have to throw them away. That's just what depreciation is, kind of like the concept it's based on, from it's like an accounting concept. But based on his analysis, he thinks at max, these chips are going to be useful for 2 to 3 years. So basically, half or more than their current estimates in their financials. And due to this difference in what they're saying they're depreciating the assets over and what they're really going to have to rotate chips on a cadence of, he's calculated, they're 20 to 30% overstated on their profits currently. This affects like Meta, Oracle, basically all the big AI players that are out there. So it's an interesting article. It's an interesting thought process. I mean, I think that a lot of these tech companies are, banking on the same methodology that Silicon Valley has used for years, which is like, we're going to buy the market by, over investing. And then, it's going to make sense on the back end when we're like the market leader and you don't have anywhere else to go in the market. So, yeah, anyways, it's going to be interesting. I can definitely see financial analysts. So basically, like, financial analysts that have invested in the AI stocks have done really well over the last year. I think they're above like a 19% return, right? Which, your average market return is more like at best, like on average, like 8%. So they're 10 points over that, which is awesome. But their bonuses, like at their jobs, are typically based on hitting certain marks for the year. So I can see a lot of financial analysts saying, I've already hit my financial marks for the year. I'm going to pull back and be more conservative for, the next 6 weeks or whatever. So, we could see a slight dip in the market based on that. This is just Bryce speculation. Don't trade on this data, right? So, if you make money, you should give me a cut. If you lose money, I didn't tell you to do it.
I mean, that makes sense, right? When there is a significant understating of their operating cost, in this case, depreciation, like, yeah, that's going to have an impact on how people are going to see the value of it. That's crazy. Because earlier, I remember on a previous podcast, you and I had talked about, like, how these chips, NVIDIA's chips, are not the best for AI. They're not the best purpose-built, right?
Yeah, well, they're general purpose, right? It would be a good way to put them. So if you need flexibility, or you need to do like cutting-edge research, it's good or the best option. But if you just need like inference, like I got a bunch of customers and they want to generate stupid Sora videos, right? Like, no, GPUs are like way less efficient than like a TPU or some other dedicated, specifically designed for those task type hardware. So I mean,
so it kind of makes sense if they start considering pivoting off of these GPUs then at some point in the near future, given the amount of adoption in AI world.
Yeah, I mean, I think competitors are acutely aware that they're losing out on revenue, like AMDs of the world, to NVIDIA, and then two, like the major tech companies are acutely aware that they are just spending a ridiculous money giving that to NVIDIA that could be a potential competitor against them in the future. And so they don't like funding their competitors. So they're going to try to build chips in-house that are better. We've already seen companies like Cerberus and Grok, GROQ, come out with dedicated hardware that very much outperforms your typical GPUs. People just really aren't great at keeping secrets. So I think this, once a couple companies figure it out, they're all going to figure it out. I don't know. You could argue with me about that, but I think humans are inherently rewarded for gossiping. And so, inevitably secrets get out. So
I think we just need to formalize it at this point and bring back the speakeasies,
Yeah, I like that.
That speakeasy culture. That'd be fun.
Well, there's definitely like a cybersecurity underground where it's they don't call it speakeasy, but they call it like Chattam House rules, and then they'd say it's like invite only, right? So there's definitely groups that. Do you know about Chattam House rules? So
I don't. What's that?
I don't know
You're educating me on a lot of topics today, Bryce.
I don't know the origin of it, but essentially like, you can repeat something that you hear at the meeting to help your organization, but you can't attribute it back to who said it or any like identifying information about the organization that it affected. So like, let's say like I'm Bryce, I'm running a company, we have this huge breach. You and I are like in a trusted group. We meet up together, and I tell you about the breach and all the things that happened, so that you can improve your cybersecurity posture, right? We can both like improve our posture and help each other out. But then when you come back to your company, you can say, hey, there was a breach at a company that was like, you know, a banking company or something like that, and this is how it happened. But you can't give away any specifics that would like identify like that I told you, or that like it was associated with like my bank or something like that. Yeah. So yeah, I think there's a lot of those like really, really small closed net groups. And honestly, you know, a while ago someone asked me like, DEF CON is so big now, like that conference is so big, and you know, really what is the future of the cybersecurity industry? Because like a lot of people aren't even really like, they still go to DEF CON almost out of ritual, but they're not really getting the return on it that they were getting, you know, 20 years ago or whatever. And you know, my initial thought process is like, you're going to have these specialties, right? And, you know, being a CISO could be a specialty, being like a SOC analyst could be a specialty, being a red teamer could be a specialty. And then you're going to have like basically these little cliques, you know, where you're like, okay, I trust these other red teamers, or I trust these other SOC analysts. We're going to share information with each other and help each other get ahead in our organizations. And I don't think a lot of these things are like super formal processes necessarily, but you know, they start really loose knit, like, oh, I got a group of people that I trust on Signal. You know, now we have like 100 users. Signal isn't really tenable anymore. Let's move this over to a Discord or a Slack group. Okay, now how do we vet people to come into the Discord or Slack group to make sure that they're like trustworthy? So now you have to implement processes. And then there's always like someone who does something stupid. So you're like, okay, now we need a process to kick people out of the group. And then eventually you're like, well, we're doing all this work, we might as well just like formalize it and meet up at like in real life. And you know, I can definitely see over the next 10 to 20 years there being a lot of these like really small conferences popping up that are essentially like, you've got to get in the trusted group in order to get invited to the event. So that's kind of my prediction of where the industry is going, but I don't know. I could be totally wrong. So what do you think, Shelby?
No, that totally makes sense. And I would kind of imagine it as like an informal con, right? One that doesn't have a website. It only has like invitations, kind of a thing.
Yeah, I mean, it could be as informal as like someone just puts in the group chat, like, hey, we're meeting up, you know, 5 p.m. at this place or whatever, and then
Yeah.
you know.
I was actually kind of curious. So I met Jeff Moss in person for the first time, or Dark Tangent, the founder of DEF CON, a few weeks ago.
Okay, cool.
I didn't talk to him for long, but I was just curious. I was like, I wonder what his thoughts are on how it's developed and where he sees its future going to.
Yeah,
It has gotten really big. Like, it's really hard to get the, like, I don't know, the technical value out of it that you want. Like, I kind of go for the fun of it.
Yeah, I think that's most people. Most people go for the fun and go to meet up with their friends, because it's just so hard to like when there's so much stuff going on. Yeah, you just get pulled in a lot of different directions, and you
Even
know, a
the
lot.
Sky Talks are really cool, but it's gotten big.
Yeah,
Like, it's
yeah,
hard to police that many people to make sure that no one's got a device on them that's recording or something. They just can't do it, you know?
yeah, and I think a lot of times you become a victim of your own success, right? The things that made you successful, like, they're not sustainable when you get to like a larger size, right? So I don't have a solution to that. I just think, you know, that naturally we're going to break into groups, and these groups are going to be specialized around your job functions or where you're spending the bulk of your time. So
Yeah, makes sense.
Cool.
Thanks for
Well,
sharing.
there's been a lot of Bryce banter, I would say. So, you got any other news stories you want to share with us this week, Shelby?
Yeah, I just wanted to talk about a trend. Um, so this one, um, we're seeing a rise in with I guess with all the AI hype. There's a boon in like or like a boom. That's the word. Let me try that again. There's a boom in app development because there's AI and that can make things a lot of fun. According to Sensor Tower's report, they had a 2025 State of Mobile report. They said that last year, just 2024, there were 17 billion downloads of AI related mobile apps, um, which that number surpassed even what I had expected 17 billion. Anyway, so what we're seeing here is because there's opportunity, there's also opportunists, right? Who are going to jump in on that. And so we're seeing a lot of copycat apps. And some can be harmless, basically. Some we're seeing are like, they're basically just wrapping existing APIs and reselling it for a profit, right? Just kind of getting in the middle of there. And others are actually more malicious. So just a reminder to people, like, get legitimate apps, check do your due diligence before you start installing random apps in places, and also consider that with new tactics, old defenses or ways of determining which apps are safe or not may or may not be sufficient. So I just want to talk about a couple examples of specific apps and what they're up to. So the first one I want to talk about is called Dolly 3 AI Image Generator. Like, that's the name of the app, and it's not actually from Dolly, I believe. It's advertised as an open AI product. These people who are taking advantage, right? They're just doing mimicry, right? They are riding on the tails of successful companies and just trying to look like them. So basically, they're saying this is an AI image generator, but there's no AI happening here with this app. So if you install this and then analyze and look at what the app's activity logs are actually saying it's doing, it's not generating content. But from a user perspective, it gives you like a little thing that looks like it's working on generating your image and stuff like that. So from a user perspective, they don't see what's happening under the hood, right? It's really, so no content is being generated by this app. It's actually just funneling user data out to ad services. So you installed this app and now you are selling your data on accident and someone else is profiting off of it. So no content is being generated by the app itself, right? And it's actually it's marketing traffic disguised as intelligence. And I like this quote from the lead researcher at AppNox. His name is Abhinav Fasith. And he said, "It's not malware in the strict sense, but it's a commercial parasite that profits from deception." So obviously not the worst thing that could happen, but also pretty crummy. Here, let's take another example. This one is from, it's an app called WhatsApp Plus. And this one is a little more malicious. So first off, initial warning signs. It is signed with a fake cert. It's just not legitimate. And then it uses a packer, I think it's called Ijami packer. And it's a tool that is often used by malware writers to encrypt their code. So there's another warning sign. And then after you install this, hidden executables are decrypted and loaded. So now we can tell that we are dealing with a Trojan here. You know, it paraded itself as a messaging app, and now that it's loaded, it's actually unpacking some extra stuff. You know, it's sneaking around. It then expands its permissions, takes advantage of those, and it is spyware. So you think you're texting your friends, messaging friends, doing whatever, and it's actually just spying on you. So that is, I'm sure there are more examples out there. I just grabbed these two, but just a reminder to check on the reputation and behavior of those AI apps, and really just kind of any app, right? So
Yeah, it's tough, man. There's it's a lot of legitimate looking domains that that are not legitimate at all. So, for example, my friend, I told when Nano Banana, which was like the Google AI image editor or generator came out, I told my friends about it. And I told them, I was like, you should just go to like AI Studio and then you can pick the model and you can use it there. But of course they didn't remember that end part. All they remember was nano banana. And so then they went to Google and they searched nano banana. And like in the time in which, you know, it had been released, then I put it in the group chat, so like everybody else was trying it out. Someone like later that day already had like nanobanana.com or nanobanana.ai registered and was like taking payments on the website, which really you could have just gone to like AI Studio and used it for free at that point. So like it was like, and there's just so much stuff like that. Like I was formatting my daughter's laptop to fix it up, and I needed to install like the Asus Rogue Crate software. And so I Google searched for it, and sure enough, like there was a website that came up that was like roguecrate.com, and I went to it. I was like, wait a minute, like wouldn't this be at like asus.com, like under their support page? Why is there a specific domain just for this? And sure enough, it was malicious. So it was trying to just download executables and get you to run them on your laptop. Dude, it's tough, man. I mean, the websites look good, and it's just hard when you like only have a tidbit of information. It's like you know a name, and so that's all you're going off of.
Right.
And
I saw my favorite URL, not typo squatting, but URL sneaky thing going on. It was Microsoft.com, but the first two letters, it was a lowercase r and a lowercase n. And if you look at an R and an N next to each other in small font, it looks just like an M. If you kind of squint or don't have great eyes, or you're looking at it from far away, it looks just like an M. So it looks like Microsoft.com. I thought that one was sneaky. Funny, also very rude.
There's a really interesting piece of research that I feel like nobody really ever talks about. It came out a long time ago, but essentially, like, in most systems, other than like production servers, right? The RAM is like kind of at what you would call good enough quality. But what essentially that means is like over time, there's a slight chance that a bit could get flipped. So you could potentially have a domain name where you actually typed the correct domain name to go to it, but then due to the RAM's like error correcting technologies, it incorrectly flipped the bit, and you actually end up going to a malicious website. So the odds are really, really low.
I've heard of that. But you pick like a really popular one like Google.com, right?
Yeah, but imagine like you have like WindowsUpdate.com, and then you just register a bunch of bit flips on it, and then people come to you for their updates. I mean, that won't work theoretically because of like code signing and things like that, other compensating controls. But I always wonder, like, is there just some dude sitting out there that's got like an alternate Google.com that's just like, you know, there's so many people going to that websites per day. Yeah, I don't know.
Even if you trick just 1% of the 1% of the people, you're still getting victims with those high volumes.
Yeah, and a lot of times it's like you don't really care who in a company you're getting. You just want to get in the company, like past that hard shell. So I don't know. And we do know there's like initial access brokers out there where they're just getting initial access to laptops, and then they're selling that access to other people that are monetizing it. So, you know, somebody like that would be like definitely like trying to hit up these techniques. So that should make you feel good about, you know, just the world in general. You could do nothing wrong and still go to a malicious website. So yeah, sounds great.
I feel like, what's his name, Ralphie from The Simpsons? He's like, I'm in danger.
I choose you. And then do you remember the Valentine one? And like Lisa breaks his heart. That's all I remember.
That one.
All I remember is the one where the poor boy gets his heart broken. Poor Ralphie.
Funny. Do you have another story for me, Bryce?
Let's see. One thing that I like to follow is like the latest tech startups, just because like they're always doing cool stuff. And one way that you can kind of follow those is there's like one of the big conferences for startups is Tech Crunch Disrupts conference in San Francisco. So I didn't go to this conference, but I was just checking out some of the companies that were in it because they kind of do like a competition for, and the winner gets some investment from, like a panel of judges. And I highly encourage anyone who is like interested in technology in general to go check out a lot of these startups. A lot of them are using AI in different various ways. One that I thought, was pretty interesting was there's a new app. It's called Asleep AI, and I know a lot of us will wear smart devices when we go to sleep, and then the smart device will track our sleeping. But sometimes I forget when I'm going to sleep to wear the device, or sometimes you need to plug the device in because it's out of batteries, because Apple wants you to buy a new one. And then, but most of the time, you plug your phone in next to your bed because it has the alarm clock or things like that. So essentially what this app will do is it will actually listen to your breathing. And based on your breathing patterns, it will use AI to kind of come up with a baseline. And then it will determine in that baseline, when you're in deep sleep, when you're in light sleep, and it can essentially track your sleeping without you having to wear any device at all. And I'm sure this is going to be a paid product soon, but as of the time where I was checking it out a week ago, they weren't even really charging users for it. So anyways, that's something that I've been testing lately. I think I get a little bit better results from using the Apple Watch, but it's a good way to cover gaps where I can't find the watch, or
does it drain the battery on your phone?
Well, typically I plug my phone in when I go to sleep next to my bed, so it's already recharging. But yeah, I mean the app's running and listening to your microphone, so it's definitely gonna take up some battery. Well, I don't know. Maybe that's just a Bryce thing. Do you plug your phone in before you go to bed, or what's normal for you, Shelly?
I used to. I recently read something that said it's not great for battery life. So I'm changing that habit now. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think you've seen some of the devices, they, by default now, will kind of govern, they'll kind of hold on the device charging over 80%. Because, yeah, I think the overcharging of the batteries historically kind of causes a degradation of the battery faster. But
yeah,
on the flip side, I just need my phone to be charged when I wake up, and I don't want to think about it ever again. So
yeah, that's fair.
And I don't want to be fiddling around with the phone during the middle of the day to charge it. So
something
I don't
cool
know.
about the app you mentioned is it could also it seems like it could also tell someone if they had sleep apnea too.
Yeah,
Which
yeah.
could be helpful for diagnosis there.
I don't know much about sleep apnea, but I think that's the direction they're heading for sure. Is yeah, trying to be able to give you more intelligence on it without you having to wear a device. So
That's cool. I wonder if it will work in a room. Wait, you said you've been using it.
yeah.
I wonder if it works in a room if you have more than one person sleeping in a room.
Seems to be working okay.
To parse out both
But with that
sounds.
being said, the phone is physically closer to me than my partner, and I am a lot louder than my partner. So
I started that question and I realized I was like, oh, that's pretty personal.
yeah, I was like, let's just say, yeah. If anyone's snoring, it's definitely me. So, yeah, I don't know. That's also, I gotta think that it's able to pick out the different people, right? I don't know. Anyways, good question. Good
I've
question,
seen
Shelby.
another app that analyzes bird calls.
Okay.
And I don't know if it's comparable to snoring people, but it did successfully parse out different bird calls. So you turn your phone or your app on, it listens, and it can tell you which birds are in your area by the sounds they're making, and it can show you their sounds, and it could parse out multiple birds at the same time. So maybe there's hope for that.
Yeah. I'm sure anything's possible with AI. It's magic. It's magic. If we've learned anything here, if it could reverse engineer, malware,
Xloader, yeah.
it could easily pick out two different people snoring. So
I'm sorry, I doubted it. Please tell it I said sorry.
All right, maybe just keep wearing your Apple Watch. All right, so what have you been doing this week? You find anything fun? Anything interesting?
Yeah, I actually started rewatching some of the Stranger Things episodes.
Oh, nice.
I invite a friend of mine. She and I worked in the SOC together years ago, and we watched Stranger Things at night because I don't know about y'all, but I cannot watch that show by myself. It's bad
It's scary,
enough.
man.
It's scary. It's bad enough turning the lights out. But rewatching it because the final season is coming out soon. So the first part of, they're calling it Volume 1 and Volume 2, and then the final episode. The first part, Volume 1, is dropping on November 26th, so just in a few weeks. And then Volume 2 is coming out on Christmas Day, which I don't know how I feel about that. I'm very excited about it. But, I feel like I should be spending time with my family, but I'm going to totally be just interested in seeing what happens.
Netflix doesn't want you doing that. They don't want you spending, they want you eyes glued to the screen. You got free time on Christmas Day.
Right, it was an interesting one, but it is perfect for that holiday season.
Yeah.
For some people have a little more time off at the end of the year, and then the final episode is going to drop December 31st. That's
cool.
Nice for people who get long Christmas breaks, or for people who just need something to do when it's getting dark outside early. But each episode is supposed to be almost 2 hours long. So it's the first one has 4 episodes. The first drop is 4 episodes, then 3 episodes, and then the last one. I don't know if they're the exact same amount of time, but it's actually a lot of content. So
I got about a 20-minute attention span, Shelby. So you got to
What?
chunk that up.
So funny. Do you watch that show? Just me?
Oh man, let's see. Well, the one thing that I want to talk about, did we already talk about this? Did you guys see that robot that they're pre-selling now?
Oh. Is it the one that's wearing a sweater? It's soft?
Yeah, it's kind of got clothes on it, right? So, and it took 45 minutes to shut the dishwasher. Have you seen this thing? And basically no part of the robot is actually no, not no part. There's 2 functions which are actually driven by AI, but most of it is just human controlled right now, right? So, which makes it even funnier that it has an issue. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'd really like to get a robot for my house, but I feel like the ROI is just not there, So first I tried to convince my family that we needed a robot dog, and they were not on board with that. Because you could buy these things, these Unitree robot dogs. They're $2,500.
What?
And then they're they'll walk around your house, and you can dive into the camera, and it's got a 360 camera on it.
Oh,
and so my family, they're pointing out all these very obvious logical problems with my plan. So, which was first off, why? And I was because it's cool. And then they're second off, they're what function does it serve? I'm well, it's gonna watch the house when we're not there. And then but they're we already have 1 billion Nest cameras, so what does it do above and beyond that? I'm there might be a blind spot somewhere, I don't know. And then they're well, even if it does see someone break into the house, it's not the dog's gonna attack them. Which I retorted to them. I said I could easily put a flamethrower on that thing if we want. So, but they were not on board with that either.
What if they steal the dog? Does it have GPS? Could you just find their location? They take the dog with them.
It's an interesting. I don't know. I have not seen if it's got a. I'll put an Apple AirTag on it. It'll be good.
There we go.
I'll find my dog. It'll probably be easier to find than most of the things in my house. So.
So,
Anyways,
what
no
I'm hearing
robot.
is you're getting a dog robot and a human companion for it as well. Is that right?
Maybe the
For a
human robot could train the dog robot to do something useful. I don't know what that useful thing would be, but he could figure it out, I'm sure.
I'm just
So-
picturing your human robot taking your dog robot for a walk, even though your dog robot does not have the same needs as a real dog and doesn't actually need to be walked. That would be cool, though. Just
But
imagine
that
that.
someone's
down the
gonna
street.
make that video for sure, man. Like, are you kidding me? All right, that's it. I don't really have much going on, other than I just wanted to talk about how much I want to buy a dog robot for no reason. All right. Well, thanks everybody for tuning in. We'll be back next week with some more AI and cybersecurity news, and yeah, we'll see you more then. Thanks.
Bye.